So a couple weeks ago, I posed the question, were there any videos that my viewers would like to see? And one of the responses was, you wanted to see what other genus or genera of plants I like to grow. And I thought, well, that could be kind of fun because, a man does not live by Hoya alone. So join me with a tasty beverage of your choice close to hand while we find out about how not to live by Hoya alone. And a quick thank you to everyone who took the time to respond to last week's request about your success stories. They were very interesting to read. It was good to see people having, well, not see because I didn't see it, but to hear about people having success and being pleased with the way some of their plants had grown. So yeah, that was very cool. For this week, I've kind of divided the plants up into general groups or genera because I have like multiples of different ones and it just made it easier. So as usual, the kids are all lined up over here and let's get on with the first group. And the first group up has got to be orchids. Now, I am by no means an orchid expert, but I really enjoy them and I have a lot of fun with them. And if you're intimidated or afraid of orchids, don't be, okay? Just don't be. So I've got some samples over here. And this is just a standard dendrobium. No, it's not. It's a phalaenopsis. And it's just beautiful. You see these in all the stores. Now, there are approximately 25,000 identified species of orchid, and estimates are that there could be as many as 35,000. They grow on every continent except the Arctic and the Antarctic, and they come in typically three different varieties. Terrestrial, meaning they grow in soil. Epiphytic, meaning they grow in trees or on other things. And hemiepiphytic, which means they may start out in soil and then transfer, or they grow in something that's more like leaf litter, that's not really soil, but it's not really epiphytic. So it's somewhere in there. It's a little bit of each. These are really cool. Like I said, this is a phalaenopsis, and you see these in all the stores. I've shown my big zygopetalum that lives back over here. And I'll put some close-ups of the blooms because I'm sure I have them. He just finished blooming, but it's a good big plant. My Cattleya is in spike, so I would expect blossoms in... He usually blooms sometime in February. So I'll put some close-ups if it didn't focus enough. I have a little Oncidium that's doing pretty well. And I have a little hybrid here that's also in spike and getting ready to bloom, which is going to be very cool. I've not seen this one bloom before. It's a fairly recent acquisition. So yeah, I'm excited about this as well. You can grow orchids in a lot of situations. They do not need, for the most part, at least the ones I grow, don't need any special care. I even grow a couple in terracotta, and it's entirely doable. This plant has been in this pot for a while. It's time to repot it, but it's a process because some of those roots have just glammed on to the side of the pot. So it's a little bit of a thing to gently, you have to soak everything down and gently pry them away and get them settled. But yeah, this one could stand a little up pot. It's in spike as well. And one of the things about orchids is when they're in spike, you just water them and leave them alone. Don't try and repot them. Don't try and do any other stuff. Now, as I said, they don't need any special care. They're really easy. and I have a lot of fun with them. I got my first orchid so long ago that to order an orchid, I had to fill out a paper order form, write out a personal check, and put it in the mail. And then you just waited for your package to show up. There was no confirmation, there was no tracking, there was no nothing like that. So that's a long time ago. Now, they didn't take the mail, on horseback, but it goes back a ways. So yeah, they're a whole lot of fun. I'm going to do a video about jumping in or experimenting or trying out orchids in a couple weeks. So keep an eye out for that. But yeah, when you get blooms like this in your home in the middle of winter, that's really cool. And the blooms on Phalaenopsis tend to last. They usually, for me, start blooming in, I'm going to say, end of February, March, somewhere in there. And I'll have blossoms on the plants until the end of May. So yeah, that's a decent spell of blooming. So keep your eyes out for the video. And first category is definitely orchids. Now, the next group of plants are my Lithops. They're just so much darn fun. And then they're neat looking. They're sometimes called living stones because what they use their camouflage to disguise themselves as stones so they don't get eaten, which is, not a bad development. Lithops are native to Botswana, Namibia, and South Africa, the Cape, Free State, and Northern Provinces. And they were first published in 1922 in Gardener's Chronicle by Nicholas Edward Brown. I had never grown these before until maybe a year and a half ago. And I saw them, I thought, let's get something new, something kind of weird, which usually attracts me. And I thought, let's give it a try. So I bought a bunch of them. Couldn't be happier. These are all growing in small pots with drainage and pond. They want something that's really free draining. So cactus soil might work. Leca, I think, would be too big. Pond works okay for me, but something that's like for succulents, because these are succulents. There are a bunch of different varieties. I'm no way a Lithops expert, but they have been a lot of fun. Different colors, slightly different growth pattern. And I'll put close-ups of them up here because there's enough loose pond on the floor here. I don't need to add to it. But they have just been a real delight. They are very cool. They are so minimum care that it's like nothing else I grow. These get watered maybe once a month. In fact, it's like the first of the month is when they get watered. And at a certain point, you don't water them at all. So they multiply, and you should be able to see it. If not, I'll put a close-up of this. But you'll note at one point, let's see if I can get that a little bit better, that the two leaves that had been tight together like that start to appear to be opening up. And if you look in there, you can see the next set of leaves inside. And so when the Lithops start to open, you don't water them again. You don't water them again until the old leaves have shriveled up and dried up. There we go. So you can see these last two are still in the process. They're still kind of plump. And that's this year's set of leaves. And when they start to pull apart, you just stop watering them until the old leaves have dried up like these. And then you start watering them again. And I've been watering them maybe once a month. I put them in pond. They're in, I think the window at that point is, it's sort of a south window. So it gets early morning southeast sun and up through the early afternoon. The rest of the time it just gets good bright light. But they are right in the window. I have, windows that slide up and down. There's a term for that, and I don't remember what it is. But these sit right on the top of the window frame. They are so cool. I can't not recommend them. They bloom, as you can see. That's the last of the spent blossom, and it had not. Yeah, I'm not going to pull at it until it decides to fall off of its own accord. But yeah, lithops are just really cool. I can't grow other kinds of, well, I can grow, and you'll see a couple other kinds, but things like echeveria and those kind of succulents, I have absolutely no luck with them whatsoever. Lithops, very cool. You could have these on your desk at work. You could have them in the kitchen window at home. The only thing they want is lots of light. So if you can provide that, and as I said, you can put them right in the window, they can get blasted. They're pretty good. So yeah, absolutely. If you have a chance to try out some lithops, you should give them a shot because it's it's fun. Yeah, lithops. And some of you may remember talking about my grandmother growing African violets. And I do okay with African violets, but what has become my favorite from that family are Primulina. And these are known as Asian violets. And we're at the end of blooming on these buds. So they're looking a little bit less than perfect. But they are very, very pretty. Now, Primulina is native to north central, south central, and southeast China, Hainan Island, and Vietnam. And they were first published in 1883 in the Journal of Botany, British and Foreign, by Henry Fletcher Hance. And as I mentioned, they are related to African violets. They're all members of the Gasteria family. The reason I love these, well, other than, that's just beautiful. You can't argue with that. And that they come up and they all seem to do this thing where they come up and hang down. These things, for me, have been tough as nails. I don't have any I'm thinking right now, I don't have any African violets currently in the collection, because I am sometimes neglectful of some plants. If I put them in some place where I don't remember where they are, then they can get neglected. These puppies, and I've had these for 3 or 4 years, just keep coming back. They can take some neglect, they can take a little bit of abuse, start giving them a drink again, remember that they're there, and they are very cool. The leaves, let's see, find some nice ones, are not just your plain African violet leaves. These have sort of a corrugated look to them, which is very neat. This one, which I neglected quite a bit, has a very pretty pattern to the leaves. and noticed that I neglected it. And once I start taking care of it again, essentially watering it, it bounces right back, which I really love. And then this one also has a bit of a pattern to the leaves. They are very pretty. I should have pictures of all of them in bloom, and I'll try and pop them in from time to time. Yeah, there are currently about 232 species recognized of Primulina. They are not, or they weren't, terribly expensive. Not always easy to find, but they're out there. These came from Hertz Garden in Ohio, and they have just done really, really well. If you've struggled with African violets or you're intimidated by them, get you a Primulina, because they're just tough as nails. If you want something in this family, these are just so much fun. I mentioned where I got these. I've seen them other places. I've seen them online. I've seen them in a couple local nurseries here in southern New England, so that's very cool. These are a favorite. I'm probably going to look for some more, but I'll wait until the weather warms up just a little bit. These are Primulina. Now my next group are some more epiphytes. And if you've watched long enough, you know I love some epiphytes. And these are Rhipsalis. Now, Rhipsalis are commonly referred to as mistletoe cactus or jungle cactus, something like that. They are native to, and settle back because here's a list, Angola, Argentina, Belize, Benin, Bolivia, Brazil, Burundi, Cameroon, the Cayman Islands, the Central African Republic, Colombia, Comoros, Congo, Costa Rica, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Ethiopia, French Guiana, Gabon, Ghana, Guatemala, Guinea, the Gulf of Guinea Islands, Guyana, Haiti, Honduras, Ivory Coast, Jamaica, Kenya, the Leeward Islands, Liberia, Madagascar, Malawi, Mauritius, Mexico, Mozambique, Nicaragua, Nigeria, Panama, Paraguay, Peru, Rwanda, Reunion, the Seychelles, Sierra Leone, South Africa, Sri Lanka, Sudan, Suriname, Swaziland, Tanzania, Togo, Trinidad and Tobago, Uganda, parts of the United States, Uruguay, Venezuela, the Venezuelan Antilles, the Windward Islands, Zaire, and Zimbabwe. So Rhipsalis grow lots of places? Yeah. Rhipsalis as a genus was first published in 1788 in De Fructibus et Seminibus Plantarum, or On the Fruits and Seeds of Plants by Joseph Gertner. There are lots of different kinds of Rhipsalis. This one is Rhipsalis burchellii, and I really kind of like these kind of Rhipsalis, but they are, for me, very much fun. This one is, and I have to, Rhipsalis cerescula, or cerescula. Again, nice arching. They're just fun. They're beautiful, very fine branches, if that's the right word. Again, I'm not a Rhipsalis expert, but they have done well for me. This is Spathiphyllum, which is very cool as well. These, for me, I tuck them on shelves in my living room, which gets great afternoon light. When you hear the name jungle cactus, hear both parts of it. Don't just hear the cactus part, because while they may be members of the cactus family, they don't grow in desert conditions. So yeah, don't treat them like a desert cactus. This fine little beast here is Rhipsalis cribrata, which looks very neat cascading. I mean, for me, that's a very cool plant. That's my whole vibe right there. If you want to, yeah, it's very neat. They are epiphytes, so I have most of them growing in a really barky mix. So bark, it's a Hoya mix. It's bark and sphagnum, maybe some cocoa husk chunks, tree fern fiber. I wouldn't bother with perlite because that's just going to tend to fall to the bottom. You could use some chunkier pumice in here if you wanted to. But yeah, these are just minimum care. I mean, you don't have to baby them too much, but you know, they do well. And the different one, and this is fairly new, but this is Rhipsalis paradoxa. And the paradox is the way the leaves switch back and forth. So one set of leaves will grow like this, and the next set of leaves will grow like that, and it switches back and forth. I think that's where the paradox came from. These have been so much fun. You can, if you know you're looking for Rhipsalis, you can find them. Some of these came from Hertz Garden, again. Some of them came from Logie's in Connecticut. They have been very much fun. And if you're into epiphytes, yeah, this is something to look into. I love Rhipsalis. They're just cool. And we're out in the living room for this next group of plants, and these are Spathiphyllum. Now, Spathiphyllum are native to, I got another list for you, Belize, the Bismarck Archipelago, Brazil, the Caroline Islands, Central American Pacific Islands, Colombia, Costa Rica, Ecuador, El Salvador, French Guiana, Guatemala, Guyana, Honduras, Maluku, Mexico, New Guinea, Nicaragua, Panama, Peru, the Philippines, the Solomon Islands, Sulawesi, Suriname, Trinidad, Tobago, and Venezuela. They were first published in 1832 in Melatomata Botanica, by Heinrich Wilhelm Schott and Stefan Andliker. And there are about 60 species of Spathiphyllum. These are, for me, really great plants. They have a special meaning. When my mom was in the nursing home, I was there visiting her one day, and we were sitting in the common room, and I noticed some Spathiphyllums on the side that looked, well, not their best. And so I looked at them and said, I can fix those. So I picked them up. After I was done visiting with Mom, I picked them up, walked out to the nurse's station, and I said, I'm going to fix these and bring them back. And she looked at me and said, don't bring them back. We don't have time to take care of them here. And I understood what she was saying, and I brought them home and potted them up, and they've been here for several years. There's sometimes, I have friends that refer to them as funeral plants because when you send a planter at a funeral, they often end up being Spathiphyllum. They're great. For me, they're so easy. They're low light plants. So these are pulled back, I'm going to say 3 feet from a northwest facing window. In the summertime, they go out on the porch where they get almost no direct sun, but nice bright light. They bloom every summer, and the blooms are, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar. I should have pictures, so I'll try and put some, I don't know where I'm going to put them now, probably over here somewhere. So the bloom, everyone thinks of the white bloom, but that is what's called a spath, hence the name Spathiphyllum. It's a specialized leaf. The bloom is the part that grows in the center, the spadex. They are very cool. I'm very happy. I love having these plants around. They will put up with a certain amount of abuse, and they will be very dramatic when they need water. I mean, they will do the big, if you have Spathiphyllum and I say the big Spathiphyllum tantrum, you'll know what I'm talking about. They'll fold right over, they'll look awful. And if you give them a good drink, they'll bounce back. Within a couple of days, they'll bounce back depending upon how dry they are. So they don't want direct sun. They want lower light. They'll do very well in lower light. So if you have a darker area of the room, they'll be happy in there. This time of year, the sun comes in that window fairly low, so it doesn't really fall on these guys at all. So they thrive here all winter. When I move them out on the porch and they get no direct sun, just a gentle light all around, they're very, very happy. They usually bloom for me in August, end of August. When you see them in the big box stores, and that's where you should absolutely get these, in the big box stores, they'll probably be in bloom. They've been pumped up with a chemical that causes them to bloom. They're not going to bloom again for you right away. But if you treat them well, give them a drink, and they don't want to dry out. I don't know that it's possible to overwater a Spathiphyllum. I haven't succeeded in doing that. Just the opposite for me. But they're very pretty. They'll do really well. They will bloom for you. They bloom every year for me. They come in a number of different varieties. This is a variegated variety. I hope you can see that. I'll put some pictures somewhere over here. This is Domino, Spathiphyllum Domino. They are just a good, steady, wonderful, for me, wonderful plant. If you've got an area of your home or your apartment, wherever you live, that doesn't get a lot of light, Spathiphyllum will find a happy home there. Yeah, and they won't disappoint. You might not think they're terribly fancy, but you know something? They do their job and they do it well. This is Spathiphyllum. The next group up should probably be two groups, but I didn't do it that way, so here's how we're going to do. Our Haworthia and Gasteria. Now, Haworthia are native to South Africa, the Cape Provinces, and the Free State. And Gasteria are native to South Africa, the Cape Provinces, KwaZulu-Natal, Northern Provinces, and country of Namibia. These are really cool, but I didn't know anything about them for a long time. A lady at work I worked with came up one day and said, "Here, this is a succulent. I don't like succulents. Do you want it?" With no name, no tag, no nothing. And being practical, I said, "Sure." So I brought it home, settled it on my porch, and carried on with life. And then I decided I should find out what it's actually called. So I looked it up, and all I had to go by was succulent, which really, in the grand scheme of things, is not a lot. So I ended up scrolling through pictures and pictures and pictures of succulents until I found one that looked like this. So I believe it is Haworthia fasciata. And I didn't want to know that name. It was labeled as zebra plant, so I thought, okay, I can find that. Great. So a couple weeks later, I was ready to transplant it and settle it into a longer term residence. So I looked up zebra plant, and there were hundreds of plants that are known as zebra plant. So that's when I decided to start learning scientific names. This has done really well for me. You can find these in the big box stores. They're very inexpensive. They want regular watering every 3-4 weeks. They want a good sunny window, and they're just beautiful. And there's several different kinds. Many of them look similar, but they are very pretty, very neat. I have one that got a little too dry. This is a Haworthia mutica, but when it's doing well, the leaves plump up, they're triangular shaped, and they become almost translucent. So they're very cool. Yeah, this one got away from me, but it's a succulent. It will bounce back for me. Gasteria, on the other hand, I had heard about when I saw pictures of this online. It's Gasteria little warty. And well, that's really stupid. You know, another one of those, that's a really stupid name. How'd they come up with that? And I paid it no mind. And then I was in a big box store, kind of cruising through the cacti looking for Haworthia. And I saw a tiny little one. And I said, that's Gasteria little warty. And I fell in love with the leaves as soon as I saw it. It looked like dried green shoe leather. Not at all the handsome monster that it's become. It is a really, for my eye, it's a really pretty plant. These little white dots you see are actually raised. So that's the warts of the little warty. Yeah. Haworthia and Gasteria, big box store items, very inexpensive, very, very cool. These are one of the few kinds of succulents I can keep alive. And they've just brought me so much joy. So if you're interested, there's a lot of different species of these. There's like 150 species of Haworthia. There's only about 16 species of Gasteria. They're all really interesting. It was first published in 1809 in Plantae Succulentae in Horto Alconia, Succulent Plants in the Alconia Garden, by Henri Auguste Duval. So if you're looking for a different kind of succulent, here you go, Haworthia and Gasteria. For the next group of plants, we had to change the location because some of the plants themselves are kind of large. So I'm in the den now, and I'm going to talk about Aglaonema. Now, I didn't know much about them until I got my first one. And since then, we've just been fine. I really like them. I have a couple different varieties. This is Aglaonema Maria. And I have Aglaonema Saber. And I have Aglaonema Slim Jim. And Aglaonema Calcite. And I've forgotten my notes, so if you'll bear with me for just a moment, I'll be right back. And there's something of a list here. So Aglaonema are native to Bangladesh, Borneo, Cambodia, South Central and Southeast China, India, Indonesia, Laos, Malaya, Myanmar, New Guinea, the Nicobar Islands, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. They were first published in 1829 in Wiener Zeitschrift für Kunst, Literatur, Theater und Mode, the Viennese magazine for art, literature, theater, and fashion by Heinrich Wilhelm Schott. And there are about 50 species of Aglaonema. The one I didn't show you, this is Silver Bay. They're beautiful, and I'll put close-ups of the leaves so you can see them again. These have just done so well for me. Oh, spent poinsettia leaf. They've done so well. They do fine in lower light situations. So while this window faces southwest, these plants are down in front of the chest. I have a small, that's what this is sitting on. So they're down in front of this low set of shelves, and they don't get direct sun. Matter of fact, they don't want direct sun. They also don't want to be overwatered. So if you're something of an underwaterer, this can work really well for you. They come in lots and lots of different colors. There are all kinds of different colors of Aglaonema. Some with more red. There's a chocolate version. I tend to like these lower ones. This one in particular, this came from a big box store, because it adds a splash of light to an otherwise kind of dark section of the room. They do really well. I'm very happy with them. I water them like once every 2 weeks, and I flow through water till it comes out the bottom, and then I don't touch them again. They're very hardy, very tolerant of my occasional lack of great care. And yeah, these have just been really good for me. I'm very happy with them. You can find Aglaonemas in a big box store. I found some of them, again, online at Hertz Garden. I think this one and the Silver Bay over here, there it is, came from big boxes. So, and I think Slim Jim is also, this was traded with me. And I think this one came from a big box as well. There's a lot of different varieties. They are very cool plants. These are Aglaonema. And we're back out in the living room again for a member of the family. This is Schlumbergera truncata, and I'm going to talk about all Schlumbergera. Now, Schlumbergera is native to southeast Brazil only, and it's another jungle cactus. And you may know it as Thanksgiving cactus or Christmas cactus, but it doesn't know what time of year it is. It responds to light and changes in temperature. Schlumbergera, let's see what my notes say, was first published in 1858 in Revue Horticole, Résumé de tout ce qui paraît d'intéressant en jardinage, or Horticulture Review, Summary of Everything That Seems Interesting in Gardening. And I like that title. That's very cool. And it was published by Antoine Charles Lemaire. There are 6 to 9 species, and the ones we're most familiar with are Schlumbergera truncata and Schlumbergera buckley. Now, you can tell the difference. Schlumbergera truncata has short, wide leaves, or sections. Buckley has the longer, narrower ones. Typically, truncata is the one that's known as Thanksgiving cactus, And Buckley is the one that's known as Christmas cactus, but that's not always the case. You can't tell by the color. You can't tell by anything else other than the shape of the leaves. So this one was sold as a Christmas cactus, but it's clearly a truncata, which is fine. I'm happy for it. I like it here. This one comes in with beautiful, strong red and white blossoms. And this one comes in with beautiful, beautiful peach-colored blossoms. And I should have pictures. I better have pictures somewhere, and I'll find them and toss them in. This is my longest lived plant. As I said, it's like a member of the family. I've had this one for at least 35 years. Because it's a jungle cactus, like Rhipsalis, some of the other ones we talked about, you need to remember that it's jungle and not so much cactus. So it doesn't want to be treated like a desert cactus. It wants regular moisture. It wants a decent amount of good light, but not bright light, not like a cactus. It grows in some more shaded areas, and so it's not used to that very, very strong light. This blooms for me every year. Once it notices that the days are getting shorter, sometime as early as the end of September, but usually around October, I'll notice buds on the ends of the branches. And it's like the first sign that winter is coming. This particular one blooms usually the second, third week in November, which is before the Thanksgiving holiday in the US. This one typically blooms 1 or 2 weeks into December, which is why it was promoted as a Christmas cactus. They are both really, really neat. The one that's known as Easter cactus is not really a Schlumbergera, it's a different variety. I don't own one of those. I may in the near future. Right now, the one I'm waiting for is I ordered a variegated Schlumbergera, having seen it on Fern's channel, and I'm excited for it to arrive. These are super easy to propagate. If you have one that's growing well, you have as many as you want. Simply break off a piece between the segments, and I'll show you the segments in close-up. Stick it in the soil. They're very forgiving, very tolerant. They can be very, very long-lived. The fact that this one has been here for about 35 years is really, really cool. If you don't have one, it's a fun, easy care plant that you can share with friends. If you need a quick little gift for some occasion, break off a few segments, put them in a pot and say, here's your Christmas cactus. This is very cool. I really like this plant. I like the whole look of it. It's an epiphyte, so I'm into those. So yeah, this is Schlumbergera truncata. After climbing all around and setting up everywhere in the house. And so, yeah. Anyway, so that was the groups of plants that I not so much collect, but I really enjoy. So a lot of them are epiphytes. I seem to be an epiphyte person, so I'm fine with that. So yeah, hope that was entertaining and educational. Maybe you saw some things that you hadn't seen before, or maybe decided to try some things you haven't tried before. So yeah, the question for this week is tell us, because we share all the answers with each other, tell us or me your longest lived plant. I showed you my Schlumbergera truncata. It's been here for over 35 years. what's your longest lived plant? And don't feel embarrassed if it's only a few weeks. You know, you have to be old like me before you get plants that have been around for 35 years. Someone in the comments from last week mentioned, I think it was a pubicalyx that they'd had for 44 years and then had moved with them a couple times. Yeah, like I said, it's a member of the family at that point. So yeah, tell me about your longest lived plant. And as always, I want to thank you for choosing to spend a little bit of your time with me this week's end. Please remember to click the thumbs up like button and the subscribe button and the notification bell. They're all really important to the growth of my channel, and they're very much appreciated by me. A lot of the products you see me use are available on my Amazon storefront, and there's a link in the description. If you'd like to support the channel, there's a link in the description also to my Buy Me a Coffee page, or there's a little thanks button down here that YouTube manages, and all those contributions are very much appreciated. I'm going to put links to a couple more videos, as I usually do, over here and here, and enjoy the rest of your week's end.